The crystal chandeliers in Mom's dining room cast perfect light across the mahogany table. I'd learned to appreciate how expensive everything looked here. The imported Italian plates, the Belgian linen napkins, the centerpiece that cost more than most people's monthly rent. My sister Rachel had insisted on this family dinner, though I suspected it was really about showing off her engagement to the investment banker sitting beside her. So Emma, Rachel's fiancé Devon began, cutting his Wagyu beef with surgical precision. Rachel mentioned you're still doing the art thing? I took a small bite of asparagus. I paint, yes. How charming, Mom interjected, refilling her wine glass. Though we keep hoping she'll grow out of it. She's 32 now. Rachel laughed, the sound sharp and practiced. Mom's being diplomatic. Emma lives in a studio apartment in the warehouse district. She wore the same dress to the last 3 family events. I glanced down at my navy dress. It was simple, well-made, and yes, I'd worn it before. It's comfortable. That's exactly the problem, my brother Marcus said, not looking up from his phone. He worked in tech, something about cryptocurrency that he explained often and thoroughly. No ambition. No drive. Just painting things nobody wants. Devon's expression shifted to something between pity and discomfort. Well, the arts are important for culture and things. She's never sold a single piece, Mom said, as if I wasn't sitting 3 feet away. Not one. 32 years old, and she's never earned a real paycheck. I set down my fork gently. The salmon on my plate had probably cost $80. I could have bought canvas and paints for a week with that money. I've sold pieces. To who? Rachel demanded. Your art school friends who also can't pay rent? Various collectors. Marcus finally looked up from his phone. Collectors. Right. Is that what we're calling the people who buy stuff at garage sales now? I'm just saying, Mom continued, her voice taking on that particular tone she used when she wanted to sound reasonable while saying something cruel. At some point you need to accept reality. Your father and I paid for 4 years at an excellent university. You could have studied business, law, medicine. Instead you chose art, and look where it got you. She can't even afford a car, Rachel added, gesturing with her wine glass. She takes the bus everywhere. Can you imagine? The bus. Devon shifted uncomfortably. Public transportation is actually very efficient in this city. Rachel touched his arm. You're sweet, but no. It's embarrassing. Emma, you could work at Dad's firm. Receptionist, maybe? At least you'd have health insurance. I have health insurance. Through the government exchange, Mom said, making it sound like a disease. Because you qualify as low income. Do you understand how that reflects on this family? I took a sip of water. The ice clinked against the crystal glass. Baccarat, probably. Mom only used the best for family dinners, especially when Rachel brought Devon around. She showed up to my engagement party in an Uber, Rachel said to Devon, as if sharing a scandalous secret. Not even Uber Black. Regular Uber. I don't own a car, I said evenly. Exactly. Marcus jumped in. Because you can't afford one. You're living paycheck to paycheck. Oh wait, what paycheck? You're living off whatever random people give you for paintings they probably use to cover wall stains. Mom sighed, long and theatrical. We had such hopes for you, Emma. You were so bright in school. Remember when you won that essay contest in 10th grade? We thought you'd be a writer or a professor. Something respectable. Instead she paints, Rachel said, shaking her head. Pictures of random things. Landscapes. Portraits. Nothing even original. Actually, I started. And don't get me started on her studio, Mom interrupted. I visited once. The building should be condemned. Concrete floors, exposed pipes, no proper heating. She has a hot plate for cooking, for heaven's sake. It has character, I said quietly. It has roaches, Mom corrected. I saw 3 of them. 3. In broad daylight. Devon was looking increasingly uncomfortable, his fork hovering between his plate and his mouth. Well, I'm sure Emma's doing what makes her happy, and isn't that what? Happy doesn't pay bills, Marcus interrupted. Happy doesn't build equity. Happy doesn't prepare for retirement. You know what she has in her 401k? Nothing. 0. I checked. I blinked. You checked my retirement account? Mom gave me access, he said dismissively. Someone needs to monitor the family's financial health. Your liability, Emma. A 32-year-old liability with paint under her fingernails and delusions about making it as an artist. Rachel leaned forward, her engagement ring catching the light. 3 carats, she'd mentioned. Several times. It's just sad, honestly. Devon's sister is a doctor. His brother's a partner at a consulting firm. And then there's you, the failed artist who can't even afford to frame her own work. I frame my pieces, I said. With what, popsicle sticks? Marcus laughed at his own joke. Mom reached over and patted my hand, her expression dripping with synthetic sympathy. Sweetheart, we're not trying to hurt you. We're trying to help. You need to face facts. You're not going to make it as an artist. It's time to get a real job, something stable. Maybe meet a nice man with a career, settle down. Devon, doesn't your firm have openings for administrative assistants? I'd have to check. Devon said, clearly wishing he were anywhere else. See? Opportunities, Mom said brightly. You could work in a proper office wear professional clothes, contribute to society. Isn't that better than languishing in that terrible studio pretending you're the next Picasso? I never compared myself to Picasso. Because you couldn't, Rachel said. Picasso was successful. Picasso sold paintings. Picasso didn't live in a converted warehouse with questionable wiring and take the bus to buy ramen noodles. I took another bite of asparagus. It was perfectly seasoned, probably prepared by the chef Mom hired for these dinners. She'd stopped cooking herself years ago once Dad's hedge fund really took off. You know what I think? Marcus set down his phone with emphasis. I think you're being selfish. Mom and Dad invested in your education, in your life, and you've given them nothing in return except embarrassment. Do you know what it's like for Mom at her country club? How are your children? Oh, Rachel's marrying an investment banker, Marcus works in tech, and Emma? Well, Emma paints. We tell people you're still finding yourself, Mom said sadly. At 32. Still finding yourself. Most people have found themselves by 25, Rachel added. But not Emma. Emma needs more time to discover that she has no marketable skills and no prospects. Devon cleared his throat. Rachel, maybe. No, she needs to hear this, Rachel insisted. We're family. If we don't tell her the truth, who will? Emma, you're wasting your life. You have nothing. You've accomplished nothing. You're going nowhere. I'm content with my work, I said. Content, Mom repeated, making the word sound poisonous. Content with failure. Content with poverty. Content with being a disappointment. Do you even have any paintings in galleries? Marcus demanded. Real galleries, not some coffee shop that lets anyone hang their stuff? I've shown in galleries. Which ones? I took a sip of water. Exactly, he said triumphantly. She can't even name them because they don't exist. Or they're so small and pathetic they're not worth mentioning. Rachel turned to Devon with an apologetic smile. I'm sorry you have to see this. Emma brings down every family gathering. She just sits there in her cheap dress, eating our food, contributing nothing to the conversation except vague claims about her art career. She lives in a fantasy world, Mom agreed. Always has. Even as a child, she was drawing instead of studying, painting instead of networking. We tried to guide her, but she was stubborn. Delusional, Marcus corrected. The word is delusional. She thinks she's going to wake up one day and magically be successful without putting in any real work. I work every day, I said quietly. Painting isn't work, Rachel snapped. Work is what Devon does, managing millions in investments. Work is what Marcus does, developing actual technology. Work is what I do, running marketing campaigns for Fortune 500 companies. What you do is a hobby that you've convinced yourself is a career. The servers came to clear our plates. They moved silently, efficiently, probably grateful they didn't have to participate in the conversation. I wondered if they recognized the cruelty in how my family spoke, or if they'd simply learned to tune out wealthy people's dinner conversations. Dessert will be ready in a moment, Mom announced. I had the chef prepare creme brulee. Emma, you'll love it, though I suppose you never get to eat things like this in your apartment. I cook for myself. On a hot plate, Marcus said. Like a college student. A 32-year-old college student who never graduated into real life. Devon's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then set it face down on the table. The markets are interesting today. Always, Marcus agreed, grateful for a topic change. I've been watching several stocks that could triple by year-end. Emma wouldn't understand, of course. She thinks money grows on trees or whatever artists believe. I understand economics, I said. Rachel laughed. You understand how to not have any money. That's different from understanding economics. She probably doesn't even know what a stock portfolio is, Mom said. Or compound interest, Marcus added. Or equity, Rachel continued. Devon shifted again. Should we maybe talk about something else? Mom finished. You're right. Emma's failures are rather depressing dinner conversation. Let's discuss the wedding instead. Rachel, have you finalized the venue? The grand ballroom at the waterfront, Rachel said, her whole demeanor brightening. 800 guests, full orchestra, imported flowers from Ecuador. Sounds beautiful, I offered. You'll be invited, of course, Rachel said in a tone that suggested this was a great generosity. Though please try to wear something appropriate. Maybe Devon can loan you money for a new dress? As a gift. That's not necessary, I said. It really is, Mom insisted. You can't wear navy blue again. People will talk. They already talk enough about our family having a struggling artist. Speaking of struggling, Marcus said, scrolling on his phone again. Emma, when's the last time you had a real sale? And I mean real, not $50 from someone who felt sorry for you. I sell regularly. To who? Rachel demanded. Name one person. My collectors prefer privacy. Marcus snorted. Collectors. Sure. Your imaginary collectors with their imaginary money buying your imaginary valuable art. You know what's really sad? Mom said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Emma actually believes she's successful. She actually thinks she's accomplishing something in that awful studio, painting away her life. It's almost sweet in a tragic sort of way. It's pathetic, Rachel corrected. Let's call it what it is. Pathetic. The servers returned with the crème brûlée, placing the ramekins carefully in front of each person. The caramelized sugar tops crackled under the light. This probably costs more than Emma spends on food in a week, Marcus observed, tapping his spoon against the sugar crust. A month, Rachel corrected. Look at her. She's practically salivating. When's the last time you had a proper meal, Emma? One that didn't come from a can or a microwave. I eat well enough. Well enough, Mom repeated. The motto of the unsuccessful. Good enough. Well enough. Never excellent. Never exceptional. Just enough. Devon's phone buzzed again. This time he picked it up, his eyes widening slightly. Excuse me, he said, standing. I need to take this work call. He walked toward the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear. He works so hard, Rachel said admiringly. That's what real dedication looks like, Emma. Not playing with paints all day. I don't play. You do, Marcus interrupted. You play pretend. Pretend artist. Pretend career. Pretend life. Mom took a delicate bite of her dessert. I used to tell my friends you were taking time to find yourself. Now I just tell them you're still figuring things out. At some point, though, I'll run out of euphemisms for failure. Maybe just tell them I'm an artist, I suggested. And advertise your lack of success? Rachel looked horrified. No. We have standards, Emma. This family has a reputation. Had a reputation, Marcus corrected. Until Emma decided to drag it down with her poverty-level lifestyle and complete lack of ambition. Devon returned to the table, his expression strange. Somewhere between confused and excited. He was holding his iPad now, swiping rapidly through something. Everything okay? Rachel asked. Yeah, there's breaking news. Business news. He kept reading, his eyes moving quickly across the screen. What kind of news? Mom asked politely, though she clearly didn't care much. It's about the art world, actually. Forbes just released their annual list of the world's highest-earning artists and... How boring, Rachel interrupted. Devon, you don't need to pretend to care about art just because Emma's here. We all know it's a joke industry. No, but this is actually interesting, Devon insisted, still reading. The top artists sold over $300 million worth of work last year alone. $300 million. That's more than some tech companies' revenue. Marcus looked up. $300 million? For paintings. Apparently. And this particular artist has been completely anonymous. They operate under a pseudonym, no one knows their real identity. But Forbes just revealed who they are and... Sounds fake, Rachel said dismissively. Probably money laundering. That's what I thought initially, Devon admitted. But look at this portfolio. Museum acquisitions, private collections, corporate installations. This is legitimate. Who is it? Mom asked, mildly curious now. Devon kept reading, his finger scrolling. They operate under the name Meridian. Apparently they've been selling through exclusive galleries for the past decade. Only about 40 pieces a year, but each one goes for millions. And they just sold a series to the Guggenheim for... He paused, reading more carefully. $87 million. For paintings. Marcus sounded skeptical. Contemporary mixed media, it says. Large-scale installations, immersive experiences. Critics are calling it the most important artistic innovation in 20 years. Rachel waved her hand dismissively. Probably modern art nonsense. You know, those paintings that are just random splatters and rich people pretend to understand. Actually, Devon continued, the article shows some images. These are incredible. Really sophisticated techniques, combining traditional oil painting with digital projection, structural elements, interactive components. This is serious work. I took a small bite of creme brulee. Well, good for them, Mom said. But that's the exception, not the rule. For every one artist who succeeds, there are thousands who fail. Like Emma. Exactly, Rachel agreed. Emma's been painting for years and has nothing to show for it. This Meridian person is probably classically trained from some elite European academy, with family connections and... Actually, Devon interrupted, still reading. Forbes says Meridian attended a state university. Mid-tier art program. No family connections to the art world. Started selling from a small studio in an industrial district. The table went quiet for a moment. Lucky break then, Marcus said firmly. Right place, right time. Probably knew someone. The article specifically addresses that, Devon said, his voice taking on an odd quality. Says Meridian built their career systematically. Started with smaller galleries, built a reputation through quality and consistency, gradually increased prices as demand grew. Very strategic approach. Where does this person live? Mom asked. Devon scrolled. Doesn't say exactly. Just mentions they maintain a private studio in an undisclosed location and avoid all publicity. No interviews, no public appearances. The work speaks for itself, apparently. Pretentious, Rachel declared. Typical artist ego. Or smart, Devon countered. The mystery adds value. Every collector wants to own a piece by the anonymous genius. It's brilliant marketing, actually. Marcus grabbed the iPad from Devon's hands. Let me see this. I want to know what kind of paintings sell for millions. He started scrolling through images, his expression shifting from skepticism to something else. Maybe surprise, maybe recognition. He zoomed in on one particular image, then another. What? Rachel demanded. What's that face? These paintings, Marcus said slowly. These techniques. I've seen. No, that's impossible. What's impossible? Mom leaned over to look. Marcus held up the iPad, showing a Forbes photograph of one of Meridian's pieces. A massive canvas combining oil painting with subtle metallic elements, creating depth and movement. The caption read, Meridian's signature style. Classical technique meeting contemporary innovation. Emma, Marcus said, his voice strange. Emma, this painting. This specific technique with the metallic layering. I've seen you do this. I set down my spoon carefully. Don't be ridiculous, Rachel said. Emma can barely afford paint, let alone. No, I'm serious. Marcus was scrolling faster now, pulling up more images. Look at this one. That brushwork. That color theory. Emma, you have paintings with exactly this style. Lots of artists use similar techniques, I said quietly. Not like this, Marcus insisted. He was fully focused now, his tech bro smugness replaced by something intense and analytical. These aren't similar. These are identical. The way the light catches the texture, the specific ratio of traditional to modern elements. Emma, where's your studio? The warehouse district. Which building? The old textile factory on Meridian Street. Rachel's fork clattered against her plate. Meridian Street, Marcus repeated slowly. Meridian. The artist's pseudonym is Meridian. That's a coincidence, Mom said, but her voice had lost its certainty. Devon took his iPad back, typing rapidly. I'm looking up the property records for that building. Fama's studio is there. We can... Here. The building was purchased 8 years ago and converted into artist studios. Owner is listed as ME Holdings LC. What's the ME stand for? Rachel asked. Devon kept typing. Looking up the LLC registration. It's registered to... Oh my God. What? Mom demanded. It's registered to Emma M. Thatcher. The room went absolutely silent. That's impossible, Rachel said, but her voice had gone hollow. Marcus was scrolling frantically through Forbes now. It says here that Meridian owns the building where they work. Uses it as both studio and gallery space for private showings. Emma, how big is your studio? The whole building, I said quietly. The whole, Rachel's voice broke. That building is enormous. 40,000 square feet, I confirmed. I use about 5,000 for my actual studio. The rest is storage, gallery space, and rental units for other artists. Mom's face had gone pale. Rental units? 12 artists rent from me. Below market rate. I wanted to help emerging talent. Devon was scrolling again. The article mentions that Meridian is known for supporting other artists. Provides free studio space to promising talents. Funds art education programs. Donated $15 million to arts organizations last year alone. $15 million, Marcus repeated faintly. That's more than I made last year, Devon admitted, looking at me with completely new eyes. Rachel was shaking her head rapidly. No, this is insane. Emma's poor. She takes the bus. She wears the same dress. I take the bus because I don't like driving, I said calmly. I wear this dress because it's comfortable and I don't care about fashion. I live simply because I prefer to invest in my work. Invest, Mom whispered. The Forbes article, Devon said, still reading, estimates Meridian's total net worth at somewhere between $800 million and $1.2 billion, depending on the current value of retained works and property holdings. Billion, Rachel said. With AB. Marcus had stopped scrolling. He was just staring at me now. The hot plate. You said you had a hot plate. I have a full kitchen, I corrected. But I mainly use the hot plate in the studio area when I'm working late. It's convenient. The roaches Mom saw, Rachel said desperately, grabbing at anything. She said there were roaches. I was temporarily housing 3 artists from Brazil, I explained. They mentioned they'd found roaches in their previous apartment. That was probably what Mom heard about. I was helping them arrange pest control. Mom's hand was shaking slightly as she reached for her wine glass. But you said you qualified for government health insurance. I said I had health insurance. You assumed the rest. The Uber, Rachel tried. You took an Uber to my engagement party. Because I'd been drinking at lunch with a curator from the Met, I said. We were discussing their acquisition of 3 pieces from my Reflections series. I didn't want to drive. Devon set down his iPad. The Met bought 3 of your pieces? Last year. For about $12 million each. The number hung in the air. But you never said, Mom began. You never asked, I said simply. You assumed. All of you assumed. I'm 32, I paint, I live in the warehouse district, therefore I must be a failure. Marcus was pulling up something else on his phone now, his fingers moving rapidly. I'm looking at your building's property value. Emma, this building is worth $42 million. You own it outright. No mortgage. I paid cash, I confirmed. With what money? Rachel demanded. With the money I made from selling paintings. That's how purchases generally work. Devon was looking at me like he'd never seen me before. You've sold over $300 million worth of art in the last year alone. Why didn't you ever mention this? Would you have believed me? I asked. 2 months ago at Rachel's birthday party, I tried to tell Mom about the Guggenheim acquisition. She cut me off and started talking about how I needed to find a husband with a stable income. Mom's face had gone from pale to flushed. I didn't know you were being serious. I'm always serious about my work, I said. But you all decided long ago that my work wasn't serious, so nothing I said about it mattered. Marcus was scrolling through article after article now, his expression growing more stunned with each one. There are dozens of articles about Meridian's work. Interviews with collectors, analysis from critics, museum exhibition announcements. Emma, you're famous. In certain circles. Certain circles? Devon repeated. You're in Forbes' top 50 most financially successful artists alive. You're above people who've been working for 40 years. I've been working for 12 years, I corrected. Since I graduated college. Rachel's voice came out small and broken. But you wore the same dress 3 times. I own 12 dresses, I said. I rotate through them. This one's comfortable for sitting. The navy hides paint stains well. Paint stains, Mom repeated numbly. From work. Which, as we've established, is actually work. The servers returned, moving to clear the dessert plates. One of them, a young woman, paused when she saw Devon's iPad screen. Oh my God, is that about Meridian? I love Meridian's work. I've been following them for years. The waiting list to buy a piece is like 3 years long. 5 years, I corrected gently. I increased it last month. The server looked at me, then at the iPad, then back at me. Her eyes went wide. Oh my God. Oh my God. You're Meridian. That's not public information yet, I said quietly. I won't tell anyone, I promise. She was practically vibrating with excitement. Your Fragment series changed my life. I'm saving up to take art classes because of your work. The way you combine traditional techniques with contemporary materials. It's revolutionary. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. She hurried away, glancing back twice, clearly desperate to text someone but holding herself back. Revolutionary, Marcus said flatly. Your work is revolutionary. Some critics say that. The New York Times says that, Devon corrected, reading from his iPad. Right here. Meridian's work represents the most significant evolution in contemporary art since the abstract expressionists. A revolutionary voice for a new generation. Rachel had tears in her eyes now, but they weren't sad tears. They were the tears of someone whose entire worldview had just shattered. You sat there and let us call you a failure. You called me a failure, I said calmly. I never agreed with you. But you didn't correct us. Would you have listened? Or would you have assumed I was delusional, lying, or exaggerating? The silence was answer enough. Mom's hands were shaking as she reached for her wine glass, drained it, and immediately refilled it. Emma, sweetheart, I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, I said. You understood perfectly. You understood that I paint, that I live simply, that I prioritize my work over material displays of wealth. You just drew the wrong conclusions about what that meant. Marcus was still on his phone and his face had gone gray. Emma, I need to ask you something. Do you have any investments? Stock portfolio? Anything like that? Why? Because I just remembered. 6 years ago you asked me about investing. You said you had some money saved and wanted advice. I told you to just put it in a basic index fund because you probably didn't have enough to make real investments worthwhile. I remember. How much money did you have saved? At that point, about 20 million. Marcus dropped his phone. It clattered on the table face up, showing a Forbes article titled Meridian, the anonymous billionaire artist who changed contemporary art forever. 20 million, he repeated. And I told you to put it in an index fund. I did actually. About 5 million of it. The rest I invested in real estate and art acquisitions. Some I donated. The index fund has done quite well though. Devon was reading rapidly. According to this, you own 3 other properties besides your studio building. A warehouse in Brooklyn, a converted church in Portland, and a... Emma, do you own an entire block in downtown Chicago? Just the old factory buildings. 6 structures. I'm converting them into affordable studio spaces for artists. The estimated value of those properties combined is... Devon paused, calculating. Emma, you have over 200 million in real estate alone. It's an investment, I said simply. Real estate in arts districts tends to appreciate, and I get to support the arts community at the same time. Rachel was crying openly now. I called you poor. I called you a failure. I said you waste your time. You did. Emma, I'm so sorry I didn't. You didn't know. I finished. But you also didn't ask. You didn't care enough to ask. You just assumed and decided and judged. Mom was gripping the edge of the table. Sweetheart, we can fix this. We can start over. You can come to the country club, meet my friends. And tell them what? I asked. That your daughter, the failed artist, turned out to be wildly successful? That you've been embarrassed by someone who was never actually embarrassing. We'll tell them we were protecting your privacy, Mom said desperately. That we knew all along but wanted to keep it quiet until the Forbes reveal. But you didn't know, I pointed out. And I'm not interested in your country club friends knowing anything about me. Marcus had picked up his phone again. Emma, I need to apologize. Seriously. I've been an absolute ass to you for years. If you'd known, you'd have treated me differently, I said. Which is exactly the problem. Your respect was conditional on my financial success. That tells me everything I need to know. That's not fair, he protested weakly. Isn't it? Devon cleared his throat. Emma, I just want to say I think your work is incredible. Even before knowing who you were, I've admired Meridian's pieces. There's one in the lobby of my firm's building, the Convergence series piece. I walk past it every day. You own that piece, I said. Or rather, your firm does. They purchased it for $23 million 3 years ago. It's appreciated since then. Current estimated value is around $40 million. He blinked. We paid $23 million for a painting? For a large-scale installation. 12 by 20 feet mixed media interactive light elements. Your managing partners thought it made a statement about forward-thinking investment strategies. It does, he agreed. Stunning. I just never connected it to you. Most people don't. That's by design. Rachel wiped her eyes. Emma, please, can we start over? I know I've been horrible, but we're family. You're my sister. I want you at my wedding, really at my wedding, not just invited out of obligation. I am your sister, I agreed. But starting over means you'd have to actually respect me regardless of my income. Can you do that? Rachel opened her mouth, then closed it. I thought so, I said softly. Mom was pulling out her phone now, typing frantically. I need to call Barbara. And Christine. They're going to die when they find out. No. She looked up, startled. What? You're not telling anyone, I said firmly. My identity as Meridian was revealed by Forbes, yes, but I haven't confirmed it publicly and I don't intend to. If you start spreading it around your country club, you'll damage my carefully maintained privacy. And if that happens, I'll make it very clear to everyone that my family has spent years dismissing and belittling my career. You wouldn't, Mom whispered. I would. Forbes already asked if I wanted to comment on my family's reaction to my success. I declined. But if you force my hand, I'll give them an interview. Marcus looked sick. Emma, that would destroy Mom's social standing. Yes, I agreed. It would. So I suggest you all learn to keep this information private, respect my wishes, and maybe, just maybe, consider that someone's worth isn't determined by how much they're willing to advertise their success. The dining room had gone silent except for the quiet sound of Devon scrolling through more articles. There's something else, he said quietly. The Forbes article mentions that Meridian is planning a retrospective exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art. Opening in 3 months. It says tickets sold out in 45 minutes. 42 minutes, I corrected. And there's going to be a reveal event. Where you publicly confirm your identity as Meridian, speak about your process, maybe show your studio. That's the plan. Rachel's voice was very small. Were you going to invite us? I was going to send formal invitations, I said. Like everyone else on the guest list. Whether you deserved personal invitations was something I was still deciding. And now? Mom asked desperately. I looked around the table, at Mom's desperate expression, Rachel's tears, Marcus's gray face, Devon's careful neutrality. Now I think you understand what you've spent years not understanding. The question is whether you learned anything from it. Marcus set down his phone carefully. Emma, I'm sorry. Really, genuinely sorry. Not because you're successful, but because I should have respected your choices regardless. You were pursuing what you loved and I mocked you for it. That was wrong. Yes, I agreed. It was. Can I ask? He hesitated. Can I ask why you never told us? Just said, I'm Meridian, here's proof, stop treating me like this. Because I wanted to see who you really were, I said simply. When you thought I had nothing, you showed me exactly how you valued family versus status. Now I know. Mom was crying now, quiet tears running down her carefully made-up face. Emma, I'm your mother. I love you. Do you? I asked. Or do you love the idea of telling your friends that your daughter is a world-renowned artist? Because 2 hours ago, you loved me enough to call me a disappointment and suggest I give up on my dreams. I didn't mean. You meant every word, I interrupted gently. And that's okay. It hurt, but it was honest. Now I'm being honest with you. You're my family and I'll always be your daughter. But respect isn't automatic anymore. You'll have to earn it back. Devon's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression shifted. It's my managing partner. He wants to know if I can confirm that my fiancé's sister is Meridian. He looked at Rachel. Should I? No, I said before Rachel could answer. Tell him you're not at liberty to discuss my private information. But this could be huge for the firm, Devon protested. Having a connection to an artist of your caliber is not something you're going to exploit, I finished. Unless you'd like me to contact your managing partners and explain that you're attempting to use a family connection for business advantage without my consent. He put his phone down immediately. Right. Of course. I apologize. Smart man, I said. Rachel, you picked well. He learns quickly. Rachel let out something between a laugh and a sob. Emma, I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything, I suggested. Not tonight. Go home, think about what happened here, and maybe consider that the sister you've been dismissing for years had more substance than you gave her credit for. I stood up, setting my napkin beside my plate. Thank you for dinner, Mom. The salmon was excellent. You're leaving? Mom asked desperately. I have work to do. There's a commission piece due next week. A private collector in Singapore. 20 million, but he's been very patient about the timeline. 20 million for one painting? Marcus whispered. For a triptych, actually. 3 pieces, interconnected theme. It's been a challenging project but rewarding. I picked up my simple canvas bag. The one Rachel had mocked earlier for not being a designer brand. Emma, wait, Rachel said. Your phone number. I just realized I don't actually have your real phone number. You always gave me that basic cell number. That is my real number. I don't need an expensive phone plan for my work. But how do people reach you? Galleries, collectors. I have a business manager, I explained. And an agent. And a legal team. They handle the logistics. The cell phone is for personal calls, which I prefer to keep minimal. You have a legal team, Marcus repeated like he was testing out a foreign language. 3 attorneys, actually. 1 for contracts, 1 for intellectual property, 1 for estate planning. It's necessary when you're dealing with 8-figure transactions. Mom stood up suddenly. Emma, please. Don't leave like this. Say what's up. Really talk. About what? I asked gently. About how you're sorry now that you know I'm successful. About how you want to be part of my life now that it might benefit you socially. Those aren't conversations I'm interested in having. Then what do you want? Rachel asked desperately. I considered the question. I want you to think about who I was 2 hours ago when you thought I was a failure. I want you to ask yourself if that person, the one you thought couldn't afford rent and wasted time on paintings, deserved the way you treated her. And if the answer is no, then maybe work on becoming people who wouldn't treat anyone that way, regardless of their bank account. That's not fair, Mom protested. You thought I was poor, so you treated me with contempt, I said. That says everything about your values. Fix your values, then we can talk about fixing our relationship. I walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Rachel? About the wedding. I'll send a gift. A painting, probably. One of my earlier pieces from before I was successful. Something from when I was just a failed artist wasting time. I think it'll be a good reminder. Emma, no, I want you there, please. I'll think about it, I said. I'll send my RSVP with the gift. Whether I attend depends on whether I believe you've actually learned anything from tonight. Devon spoke up quietly. For what it's worth, Emma, I think your work is brilliant. And I think the way you've handled tonight shows more class than most people would have managed. Thank you, Devon. Take care of my sister. And maybe teach her that a person's worth isn't measured by their wealth. I left then, walking out into the cool evening air. My phone buzzed. My business manager asking about the Forbes reveal and whether I needed her to handle any press requests. I texted back that I was fine, everything was under control. Behind me, through the still open door, I could hear the sounds of my family's world restructuring itself. Voices raised in desperate discussion, phones being picked up and put down, the clatter of someone's chair being pushed back too hard. I walked to the bus stop, pulled out my basic cell phone and checked my messages. A curator from the Louvre wanted to discuss a possible acquisition. A gallery in Tokyo was requesting 3 pieces for their spring exhibition. My business manager needed me to review contracts for the MoMA retrospective. The bus pulled up and I got on. The driver nodded at me. We'd developed a friendly routine over the years. I sat in my usual seat watching the city lights blur past. In my bag my phone buzzed again. A text from Marcus. Emma, please. We need to talk. Really talk. Not about money or success. About family. I didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The bus rumbled on, carrying me back to my studio. My 40,000 square foot studio in the building I owned, where I'd painted pieces that hung in museums around the world, where I'd built a career my family had never bothered to understand. I smiled slightly, looking out the window at the city I'd conquered while they thought I was failing. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being yourself, and letting people's assumptions crumble under the weight of their own ignorance. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's enough.